Hey, friends, you are joining us for the Crazy as Usual podcast with Donna and today with Kate Siner, the Sacred Lights Collective. This is a really great place for you to take a deep breath and allow yourself to think about the healing journey that takes us into how we present ourselves in the workplace, at home, in life. Kate is a lifelong student of healing and someone born with intuition, a sense of adventure, and deep caring. And she's here to share some of her insights with you, the insights in the journey that she has had, and how she helps her clients to battle the monkeys so that we can show up as our best selves at work and be brilliant. So, Kate, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into this work.
Well, like I think many people who go into healing, they go into it usually because of a personal journey. And so it was through my own experience, my own challenges in life, that I started to reach for something, reach for an alternative. And I didn't actually get so far until I had my son, and then it was the birth of my son that kind of kicked started I need to really get on this. I need to really do this. And sometimes I'll say that if it wasn't for him, I don't know that I would have had all I needed to take those steps for myself. So I was actually inspired through another person to really find a place of love and happiness inside of myself. And then through my healing journey, it's like there's a certain point, I think most people, I sometimes work with practitioners and help them develop. And so a lot of times after a little while of receiving healing and getting stronger, there's a desire to give back. And that brought me on to the rest of my life, really.
Well, and isn't it a beautiful thing? We usually end up serving out of our pain, no matter what we do, whether it's business strategy or inner healing. It's because we've experienced something and we can't help but share the path to
Mhm.
healing or the path to the solution because it's a shame to keep these things quiet. You talk in your bio about being born with intuition. How did you know that? Um, when did that first materialize in your life?
Yeah, I didn't know that originally. Actually took me a very long time to see what was going on, because I didn't get a lot of clear reflection when I was younger, and I didn't have a source that was telling me you're like this or whatever, or it was telling me that, but it wasn't telling me about intuition. And so
Right.
I look back over my life. And it is now that I know what I know and I've learned what I've learned that I can see how my intuition, my perception was active even when I was young. I had a number of moments of very, very strong clarity at young ages that actually guided and helped my life. But I didn't recognize them until much later.
Oh, that's a really good point because we don't always know exactly what's happening at the moment it's happening, and we don't know why until later, like the underside of the tapestry analogy. So,
Mhm.
when did it start to come together for you? This is after the birth of your son that some things started to converge.
Mm, Well, that's an interesting question. As far as when it happened, because it was such a gradual process
Yeah.
of unfolding. And one of the things that I often do when I'm working with clients is I help them be able to see how they're perceiving.
Hmm.
And because that's part of it. So sometimes somebody's having a problem dealing with someone or a situation, and it's actually because their level of perception or their intuition is they're kind of looking through a certain lens, or they're looking and they're seeing something that might be very true and valid, but they don't really know how to give it make sense of it. And so
Right.
that is a little bit of what happened to me. I mean, a lot of looking back and starting to say, oh, right, that's how I was perceiving at the time. Like I had a difficult time listening to people, like responding to what people said to me, because what I would hear and what they verbally or consciously wanted me to respond to were different things. And I actually thought, I was like, well, there's something broken. Like I'm broken in some way, you know? And what I learned was that that was actually a tool that I used for me, as I have a depth of perception into the multiple different things that people are saying when they're saying one thing. And then I
Mhm.
developed the capacity to be able to choose where to focus that attention so that then I could help people even more. So that gave me a greater capacity to do my work. So it really happened gradually over time. I don't know that I could pinpoint a moment when.
Okay. Well, and that makes sense for all of us. And we're all growing, and I don't think we're ever finished. I
Mm-hmm.
used to think that I couldn't write a book or start a podcast until I had somehow graduated into a
Mm-hmm.
new level of consciousness, and I'd say that that's always growing, and
Mm-hmm. Totally.
that healing and constant improvement is always in motion. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious to know, you were talking about how you help the people that you help, and
Mm-hmm.
um, we're here to talk about solutions for the monkeys in working women who tell us that we're not enough, not good enough, not smart enough. If someone came to you and said, "Can you help me heal from whatever is causing this perception in my head?" Where would you start?
Oh, well, so I probably the initial place that I would start, as in from the first moment, would be the acknowledgement of the essential nature of who someone is. Because what we're talking about a little bit are problems that happen inside of relationship. Like we
Yeah.
have those things because we're worried about what other people think or feel, or the consequences in our life, or our own safety, or whatever it is. And so the primary thing that people need, and there's lots of tools, but like kind of beyond all the tools, is the confirmation of that essence. And we can easily confirm another person's being the more that we have been able to confirm that inside of ourselves. So, in
Mm.
other words, the more I know myself, the more that when I show up to another, they are able to clearly see themselves. And so my work on myself, which is continual, then helps me be able to offer that from a place of from not judging the person or like boxing the person in, but of being able to see the person and just allow the goodness and the greatness and the beauty of who they are to be reflected along with the hard work, which sometimes is the hard work of the things that we need to change. It's sometimes the hard work of the habits that need to go into place in order for us to be able to be stronger in the things that we need to do. But it's like all of that goes on the foundation of like deeply honoring the person. That's why whenever I teach a technique to like a practitioner, the first thing that I help them do is to understand more of about how they do or do not honor the other person, and to really get that inside themselves. It's like it's core to everything that I do, to
Mhm.
keep on returning and learning more about how to honor the essential nature of a person or even things.
How do you remind yourself to do that? Are there triggers that remind you to respond to people in a certain way?
No, it's a being quality. So the more that you learn to do it with yourself, the more that you can like honor and acknowledge yourself, the more naturally it just happens with other people. So
Yeah.
how do you help people? Like I help someone by being that, by reflecting it back, by helping them get rid of, like, to redirect back to that essential truth, goodness, and then that grows inside of them. There are other tools that go along with that, but that's at the root of it. And
Yeah.
so it that grows inside of them, and then they naturally start to do that to other people. Why? Because it feels good. It feels good to be that, like to be that way with yourself, and it feels good to be that way with other people. And so
Hmm.
if that root is in place, then all the tools kind of find their right usage.
Okay. That's really good. You're creating an instinct. And I would assume that it's like creating a new groove in your brain. You're having to pave over the old grooves and kind of rewire a new way of responding to the world. Do you have an example of what it looks like? Is there a story you can tell that can kind of show us that insight and what it looks like in progress?
Let's see. It's again, it's one of those things that it is more conveyed than it is like done. So,
Hmm.
but I often point to things that don't do it. So that's like an easier way to do it. So what brings people's attention away from this is when they have, for example, an agenda with another person. So you've all definitely been in a conversation with someone where
Hmm.
they kind of know what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, and they are going to respond to you a certain way, right?
Uh,
And do you feel like you've been seen or acknowledged, or that there's anything going on there? No, right? So that just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And so at initial level, it could be like, oh, somebody says, I understand, or they're able to ask a good question. And so now I feel, all right, I got it. I'm like, this person's responding to me, like, and it feels good. But that goes again, deeper and deeper. The more that I become understanding inside myself, the more that I am able to create compassion for things that I have been or done or whatever, the more that then I'm able to extend that to others. So how do I
Great.
do that with another person? Is that I help them move into that space where they're able to see themselves in a different light.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you increase that self-compassion. We can't pour out of an empty vessel, so we have to be merciful toward ourselves
Mhm.
and compassionate when we fail and bounce
Mhm.
back quickly so that we can love other people.
And also, we need to have someone who is willing to see our best and hold
Mhm.
us to our best. So
Uh-huh.
that's another gift, right? Like a gift, it's gift to be compassionate, but not to be indulgent,
Uh-huh. Right.
right? And then it is supportive to like sometimes say, I actually know that you can do better.
Yeah.
So there is like helping. It's like, I believe, for example, someone has a problem with dishonesty. And
Okay.
so they really have a hard time telling the truth to people in their life. And they're doing it for all sorts of reasonable, like you could understand why they would be doing those kind of things. Okay. So now I could go and look at each of those examples, right? And explore the why. How did the person get there? Right. I could give them tools for like, how
Hmm.
do they get out of that? And all of that is helpful, right? But there's also the belief in the person that it's just like that they want to, that there's like the goodness and the desire to be truthful, and the holding them to that standard, which
Right.
is sometimes very kind and compassionate and sometimes not. It's
Uh,
actually say, I believe in you, and I know that once you get a sense of what doing the right thing feels like, you're going to want to repeat it because it pays off. And it's walking people through that process where they start to be able to see the lived results of being able to act in certain ways. And through that helps them inside be connected to themselves. And it also helps them then as they're able to relate to others. And that would just be one example. I mean, this is like a very multifaceted area. There's so right. There's so many different ways that I would address this in 5 minutes or in an hour, that it's like it almost becomes challenging to pick one.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I can see that. Um, maybe if we can talk a little bit about the context that you come from. Do you have any workplace experiences that you can recall where you had to manage the monkeys, something
Uh-huh.
tangible from your life?
Oh my gosh. When I first started my business, I always tell people I went from sleeping on my back to sleeping on my stomach, and then I went from like, I mean, dealing with whatever I was dealing with, but I would have like really intense anxiety, just
Mm,
answering emails, just trying to
yeah,
get myself out there because, and that wasn't necessarily because anybody was doing anything to me. It was more because of like bringing out what it is that was true for me, what I cared about, what I wanted to succeed,
yeah.
taking those risks to make that happen, and then feeling the fears and that were in relationship to that. So
Mm.
I mean that was it was significant.
How long did that last before you feel like you hit a stride?
Oh, geez. I kind of keep challenging myself, so I don't sleep on my stomach anymore. And so that was short-lived, but I would say like when I am going for like a new level, it's pretty I'm constantly developing myself. So in a way, like I'm in this, there's a little bit of tension in the system all the time. But when
Mhm.
I go for something that's particularly challenging, I have like a rise up of challenge, like of that, like you say, monkey, the monkeys.
Yeah.
And what I most often do about it is, I'm a big fan of prevention.
Hmm.
So I think that the way that I take care of myself and what I surround myself and the people that I surround myself on a daily basis, like all of that kind of stuff factors a lot into my ability to hold in what are stressful situations or challenging or risky situations. I mean, to be in business is to risk, like there's always a chance that you could not get it right. So doing that, like helping really cultivating that, the way that I take care of myself in my life is
Hmm.
very important. And it's another place that I recommend people look. Usually it's like, what's the weight you can take off? What's the challenge that you can put aside? And like if there are habits that you can change now, or people that are really making your life even more difficult, by cleaning that up, sometimes it's easier to address the problems in the workplace.
True. Can you identify a few of the habits or rhythms in your life that you have put into order to keep yourself primed for optimum performance?
Sure. So I'm very intentional about my environment. And my environment is used as a way of like directing my attention and keeping me in a place of feeling good. So I liked an ordered environment. I like a beautiful environment. I make a point of keeping it that way, to tending to it, to caring for it, because when I care for my environment, it's sort of a reflection of
Hmm.
me. So that's something that I do. I have a regular meditation practice. I have a regular exercise routine. I make a point of eating well. I,
Hmm.
the 90% of the time. And
Yeah.
I work with, and this meditation helps with this a bit, like learning to just redirect my
Yeah.
thoughts, and just like that the what is negative or problem or worry oriented or something like that is like really just unhelpful. I
Hmm.
mean, like, right, and it just focus elsewhere. So
Yeah.
I surround myself with people that I really enjoy being with, that love me, that like me, that understand me,
Right.
you know, that is helpful. I take time to myself because I work hard and I need time for myself in order to
Yeah.
do that. I travel a lot because it inspires me,
Hmm.
um, and that keeps me feeling like I'm growing. I study a lot because it inspires me and that feels like I'm growing. All of those things. So the major categories of life, down to like the little choices of how something feels in my hand, or the clothes that are touching my skin.
Yeah. That's what taught me how to meditate, being present with how things feel on me, paying attention to the minute details. I love that
Mhm.
your rhythms there really reflect the same ones in the book. The in Crazy as Usual, Liv actually goes through this process of five things. And actually, I took that from my own life. I went to see a psychotherapist about getting uh, drugs for depression, and he goes,
Mhm.
"I'd like you to try these five things first, and if they
Mhm.
work, then you won't need drugs. If they don't work, I'll prescribe you something."
Good for him.
And sure enough, yeah, I went home and did the five things, and it was just that easy. Making sure I get plenty of sleep, making sure I get exercise, eat real food. Don't put rules around it. Just hold yourself
Mhm.
accountable to ask, is this real food? Because I think
Mhm.
we all
Yeah,
know, don't we?
totally.
Um, yeah, practice gratitude and spend time with friends.
Yep.
I love that I had an assignment from the doctor to go home to my husband and say, the doctor said I need to spend time with girlfriends, so I won't be home on Friday night. And he fully supported that.
Mhm.
And I found that anytime that I seem to not be mentally strong, it's usually because I've let one of those things slip,
Uh-huh.
or three or more of them slip, which is
Mhm.
usually the start of the downfall.
Totally. Totally. I mean, and it's like if we think about it in terms of like I talk about it in terms of immunity or in terms of energy, it's like
Mhm.
you need to care for that. It's like
Yeah.
you can't like you have to keep yourself strong.
Yeah.
And so that because life can be challenging and
Oh, yeah.
situations can be challenging. And
Hmm.
it's sometimes very much so. So it's just like knowing that if we show up kind of as good as we can, as having taken care of all of those things, we have the best chance possible. And then there are skills, right? Like there are skills that get added onto that. Communication skills are really helpful. You
Hmm.
know, like learning to learning to work with the mind and having tools that work for you to be able to like a person to be able to redirect their mind. Um, and sometimes the kind of work that is necessary is figuring out why we're in a situation, like why we're perpetuating a work situation through our choice of participating in it that doesn't feel good to us. And like sometimes it takes a lot of work to get to the place where there are more opportunities inside of us about,
Yeah.
around our life and what we can create. And so
Yeah.
that is a place that, helps too. Like sometimes just saying no and kind of walking out, so to speak, in a smart way, balanced with life with your life makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. I love that you said that. One of my recent guests was talking about the ingredients of living a heliotropic life. And one of those is being able to walk away from a toxic environment. It could be an environment where we're enduring some kind of toxic behavior, or walking away from a conversation that's gossipy and it's something we don't want
Mhm.
to be a part of. It's important to be able to know when to do that and to have the courage to say, "Hey, you know what? I need to get out of here." It doesn't have to incur any judgment either. It's just
Right.
removing yourself from the situation.
Right. And like in the headspace, it's easy sometimes to think, well, I can't because we have all our reasons that we can't be because, but it's actually we switch into kind of a different way of looking at things. And it's like, well, I can't actually stay because the price is too high and the impact is too much on other areas of my life that I love. So it's actually preserving and
Yeah.
caring for what's most important.
That's so true. Trying to remember that in the moment is definitely something we train ourselves to do. So tell me the kind of modalities that you have of working with people, because you said that there are short engagements and long engagements. Tell me what that looks like.
Yeah. So, I mean, the primary tool that I use when working with people is talk, And so in the talk, right, I'm drawing from various different areas. So I have a psychology background, I have a coaching background, I have a teaching background. So I'll use all of those tools when talking, but that's actually not the focus of what I'm doing. The focus of what I'm doing is kind of like working with people more energetically,
Hmm.
right? I'm really good at going in and finding what the root of the problem is and getting to like kind of what I would say is like diagnosis and treatment, but like from maybe an alternative perspective. So like
Hmm.
listen to someone being like, okay, I got it. Here's the way that we can address this, and also bringing in other modalities that might be able to help the person. I
Hmm.
will use those. One of the top methods that I use in addition to the talk and the different methods that I know inside of talk, right? Because there's so many,
Yeah.
is energy work. So direct energetic healing. And
Right.
because sometimes just by helping someone shift that way, they get the new perspective, they can start to apply it, and then we have a new ground to work from. And so the difference in the length of time usually is the difference of the depth of the work that I'm able to do. So if
Okay.
somebody's want to make kind of really deep change in my life, I'm like, okay, let's like start here and like look all the way as far as we can and to making this sort of comprehensive change in your life. Where if somebody is looking for like, okay, I've got a problem, I'm looking to address it. I might be able to give them like a shorter thing, like along the lines of what you were saying your psychologist did for you and said, here are 5 things, and
Yeah.
help you work with that a little bit and then be like, okay, you're good. So usually people like me because it's like there's something that ignites in them when I'm talking and they can like feel change and awareness start to happen and they get excited by that. So that's
Yeah.
a lot of like how people they get excited by that. They're like, oh, right, there's something there that I
Right.
need, right?
Look, that insight alone is so healing. Just being able to call out what this is that causes this spinning in my mind. That's why I
Mhm.
call it the monkeys, because it almost sounds like that shrieking of monkeys that can be deafening and crazy making.
Yeah, overwhelming, so confusing and disorienting.
Exactly. And when you start to find out why those thoughts occur, then you can say, huh, now I know what that is, and it is not going to rule me
Hmm.
anymore. I
Yes.
love that. Well, imagine that somebody is listening to this on the way to work and they're looking for some sort of inspiration as they start their day. What's one or three things that you want to share with our audience before we go?
Inspiration, the first one is but like believe in yourself, like really
Yeah.
in the goodness of who you are and what your capacity is, your ability to create. Like
Yeah.
all of those things are very real. And the more that I've lived my life, the more that I've seen that they're always beyond what I can imagine. There's so much
Uh,
more capacity than we know. And that place gives a lot of comfort. So, so I would say that would be my number one piece of advice. And then, I mean, I would love to stay connected. So if you're listening to that, going to sacredlights.com and we have a platform. There's lots of education that can support you in that process. And find good resources, find things that inspire you and move you in the direction that you are wanting to move in your life. And keep going, keep going, keep going because
right.
it's worth it. It's always worth it, no matter where you are. Like, if you keep on moving towards what it is that feels good, what it is that you love, what it is that is true for you, your life gets better. Even if it's hard at first, things get better. You do the right thing, things get better. So it's like, it's so worth it. And you just keep it
Mhm.
up and it's great.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I love your authenticity, your willingness to share from your own experience. Um, Kate, it's been a delight to get to chat with you, and I hope that our audiences enjoy this conversation. If you haven't seen Crazy as Usual before, look on my LinkedIn profile for the Crazy as Usual newsletter. That's where I'll post some extensive show notes on Kate's background and all of her contact information. And I'll share a link to that on Instagram as well. Kate, I hope to see you back at a future time. I'm sure we'll run into each other in the mental health world. We're going to see more and more people living their life crazy, brilliant, and free together, right?
Yes.